Hi guys, and welcome back to another lesson in Algebra 1. Today's lesson is Unit 5, Lesson 13, and this is all about writing a linear inequality from a graph. So how you know you're successful today is you can write a linear inequality from a graph, and you know how to tell when to use the less than or greater than symbol, or the less than or equal symbol, or the greater than or equal symbol when writing your equation. So there's just a few little rules that we've got to follow as we write these equations. So let's go ahead and write this down. So one of the first things that we'll do is we're going to find our y-intercept. I am going to determine my slope. And don't forget, slopes can be either positive or negative. Okay. And so if it's negative, it's going like in this direction, right? And if it's positive, it's going like in this direction. All right, we're going to determine my inequality sign, and there's going to be a couple of ways that we determine what my inequality sign should be. One of the first ways that we determine it is whether or not it's got this type of inequality where it's just a less than or greater than. This is going to be a dashed line. So remember in the last class, we talked about the reason we have a dashed line is because the point that's right there on that boundary of the line isn't a solution. So if you see a line like this, it's like dash, 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 and a point falls exactly on it, that point is not a solution. Okay. And that's why they do the dashed line. It's because it's indicating that's not a solution. Now, this is different, okay, from the ones that have the equal bars in it. So these guys, that the less than or equals or the greater than or equals, this is going to be a solid line. And the reason it's solid is because when you graph your line, a point can fall straight on it, and that is a solution. So this is a way that people can tell the difference. Okay? So that's one way how we decide our inequality sign. And the other one is based on the direction that it's shaded. So if it's shaded above, it can only be the ones that have the greater than in it. So like it's going to be the greater than or the greater than and equals. And if it's shaded below, it can only be the less than or the less than or equals. Now we can go down here and we can write some example equations. I want you to notice that this is all like your parent line here. It's all going through the origin. Because it's going through origin, it's going to make it a little bit easier for us to kind of think about when it's going through origin. Let's see, we'll go ahead and draw this. When it's going through origin like this, the y-intercept is 0. The y-intercept is 0. And these all have a slope of 1. So like it's the parent function is going to be y equals x. Well, these are inequalities. So we've got to figure out, instead of an equal sign, what's it going to have? Okay, so I'm just going to write my y and my x, and I'm going to decide what kind of symbol it's going to be. So the first thing I notice is that it has a solid line. Okay, because it's solid, I know it can only be the less than and equals or the greater than or equals. And so then I look at which way it shades. So it's shading above. And so because it's shading above, it's going to be my greater than or equals. So that's going to be my symbol that I drop into my inequality. Like I said, these are all the same shape. I was just doing it to help show you, what kind of inequality symbol we put in there. So all of these we're going to have like y and x and y and x and y and x. We're going to just figure out what kind of symbol to put in. This is a dashed line. because it's dashed, we know it can only be this guy or this guy, a less than or a greater than, no equal bar in it. And so because it's shading above, we know it's going to be the greater than. So we can put that in our inequality. And then we have this one here. So this guy is it's shading below and it's got a dashed line. So, my dashed, if it's dashed, it can be either less than or greater than. Well, it's shading below. So because it's below, we know it's going to be this guy. And so this one is a solid line. Because it's solid, we know it can only be less than or equals or greater than and equals. And because it's shading below, we know it's going to be this guy. Okay. So that's how you tell which inequality to put in there. And so in our examples, we're going to take and build on that. So we're going to write our equations just like how we wrote regular linear equations. But then we're going to add the extra layer of deciding what kind of inequality we put in it. So I am going to erase this. If I am going too fast, just let me know. Well, actually, you can't let me know. I'm recording this ahead of time. So if I'm going too fast, I'm going to go ahead and erase it now, and you can pause it before I do that. All right, let's go ahead and look at this guy here. So there's several things that I see when I'm looking at this. One of the things that I see here is I look at this and it is solid. I see that it's going up here to the upper left, so it's got a negative slope. And I also see that it is shading above. Okay, so those are the three things that I'm noticing immediately. Another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go grab my y-intercept. So it's crossing right here at -3. So when I go to write my basic thing, I'm going to write my y and my x. This is -3. So I'm going to go ahead and write my -3. I left me some room here to write the inequality and whatever slope goes in front of my x. Okay, so I'm going to count and I'm going to look and see where it crosses the line. So I can see it crosses here at -3, and the next time I see it cross something is right here. Okay, so I'm going up, and it's going up 1, 2, right? And then it's going to the left, 1, 2, 3. So it went up 2 over 3. And I know it's a negative, so I'm just going to go ahead and slap that negative in front of it because it's really easy to leave that and forget about it. So I got my -2/3. That's my slope. Now I've got to get my inequality. Okay, we know because it's a solid line, I have a less than or equals or a greater than or equals. Well, it's shaded above. So because it's shaded above, I know it's going to be my greater than or equal. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in right here. And this is my equation. Okay. So there's several pieces that you're going to be looking for when you do these. Okay, let me go ahead and grab a different color and I'll come over here to this one. I notice here that this is a dashed line. I know that it's shaded above. I see that it's going up to the positive, it's got a positive slope. I can go ahead and find my slope already if I wanted to. Once we got, it's a point here and a point here. So I can see I'm going up 3, 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going over 2. Okay. So I've got my slope is 3/2. And I see that it's crossing up here at 2. So that's my y-intercept. So when I go to start filling all this in, I'm going to write my y, my x. I'm going to write my y-intercept, which is +2. My slope, we just found that by counting, so that's 3/2. I don't have to write the plus in front of it unless it just makes me happy. And then we got to decide the inequality. So because this is a dashed line, I know that it can be either a less than or a greater than. Those are the only two choices. It can't have the bar in it. So I know there's shading above, so it's got to be this guy. So boom, there's that. Okay, and I am, uh-oh, you know what? I almost made a boo-boo. I almost forgot a thing that was, and I wrote all over this thing without any kind of regards that there was something else I had to do. This is the importance of reading your question all the way through. And yes, I wrote this, but I also forget what I write. So it wants it in standard form. In this form here is slope-intercept. Oh noes. But we can fix this. So to get it into standard form, remember we need to have a particular format. So let me go ahead and write that format real fast. So remember, standard form is ax plus by equals, well, we should say it's going to have the inequality sign, whatever your inequality sign is, in C. Okay, so we got to get my a and my x on my left-hand side. Right now, they're on opposite sides. And notice that my x is a fraction, which means this here in front of this cannot be a fraction. So we're going to have to work with that fraction too. So let me go ahead and rewrite it. Because I cannot have a fraction with my x, I'm going to go ahead and multiply this whole shebang by 2. That will cross out that denominator there. But it is going to give me 2x. So I'm going to have 2x is greater than, this 2 times here canceled out. So we got 3x. And then my 2 times 2 here is going to be +4. Now I can bring my 3x over. This is going to cancel. So I got negative 3x plus 2y is greater than 4. But I want you to notice, oh noes again, we have another dilemma. We have this situation here. We have a negative, oops. We have a negative in front of our x. We cannot have that. That is, yeah, we just can't have it. So we got to get rid of it. And so the way that we get rid of it is we can multiply this whole fraction by a negative, and it will flip all the signs. So we're going to put a -1 here. So -1 times -3 is going to give me +3x. -1 times 2y is going to give me -2y. This is going to flip, okay? Because anytime we multiply or divide by a negative, it's going to flip that. So it's going to go this way. And then -1 times 4 is going to give me -4. And that'll teach me to not read the whole way through the problem. Maybe. Okay. So I am going to erase this. I just wanted to give you a little warning before I do it. Let's go down and do the rest of them. And I'm going to erase in 3, 2, 1. All right, let's go down here. And I'm going to make a little note to myself since I almost skipped over it. I'm going to make a little note to myself. Standard form here and standard form here. Good gosh, I almost messed that up last problem. Okay, so let's go solve this one. So we notice right away that this is going to be a dashed line. We notice that it's shading this away. Because it's shading on the underside, it can only be a less than symbol. Okay. My y-intercept is here. So I'm going to go ahead and put y less than, and then I'm going to put my -3. I've got to get my slope real fast. And so my slope, let's see, it's going to cross here. So it's going up 3 and over 1. This is a +3. It's going up here to the right. So I know I don't need a negative on my slope. Okay, now we're going to get this rearranged into standard form. So remember, standard form, we've got to have our x and our y on the same side. And that's going to be my inequality symbol, whatever that is. And okay, so to do that, I'm going to move my x over. So my x and y can be on the same side. And so that gives me -3x plus y is less than -3. And we notice again, we've got the same dilemma that we had on the last time, which is we've got this negative. And if we've got a negative there, when we get rid of it, because we cannot have, there's no negative here in front of this x. When we fix that, it's going to change this bad boy. Okay. So we got to make sure that we don't forget that part. So to get rid of that, I'm just going to multiply this whole thing by -1. That -1 times -3x, that's going to give me +3x. -1 times y, it's going to give me -y. And you might be thinking, well, we have a -y. Yeah, that's fine. We can. It's just that first number, they don't want it to be negative. Because we're multiplying this thing by a negative, we got to flip that bad boy. Boom, flipped it, greater than. And then -1 times -3 is going to be +3. So notice something here. This was shaded on the underside, and when we wrote it originally, we wrote our inequality sign correctly to show that it was shaded on the underside. We wrote it as less than. Its standard form does not show it as less than, okay? Because when we moved that 3x over, it made it negative. It caused a whole big kerfluffle, okay? So you can't necessarily look at your standard form and be like, oh, look, I know which graph goes with it because, this one has a greater than and there's a dash, but oh, wait, it shades down here. So, it can't be this one, can't belong to it. That's not true. It's because there's like some algebra going on. This can be the answer. And this is the standard equation for that. I hope that made sense with what I was saying. I was talking about like if you were like multiple choice trying to match a standard form to a graph, um, you have to make sure you do the math because sometimes those inequality signs can flip. Okay, let's do this last one. So it says write the inequality of the graph in standard form. Well, the first thing we see it's going through origin. That makes us pretty happy because that means my y-intercept is a 0. Okay, we like that. So when we go to write it, this y equals mx plus b, this b is going to fall off because it's a 0. We can see that it is a negative slope and it's going up 1 over 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's going over 4. Up 1 over 4 and it's a negative. So I've got a -1/4 slope and I've got my y. And the b, it's understood that it's 0. Okay, so we didn't have to write that 0. I'm just going to go ahead and write it there just to acknowledge it. Okay, this is a solid line. Okay, so we see that it's a solid line. So we know that it can be either less than and equals or greater than and equals. And so we look at the way it's shaded. And so it's shaded on the underside. And so because it's shaded on the underside, we know it's going to be this guy, the less than or equals. So we put that here. This is my slope-intercept. But, oh noes, they want us to put it in standard form. Okay, we can do that. When you have that fraction, when you go to put it in standard form, the best thing to do is to just go ahead and multiply by whatever's in the denominator to get rid of that denominator. So we got 4 times y less than or equal to, when we multiply with this cancels out and this cancels out too. So we just have negative x. And we can write this plus 0 if we want to, because when we go to put it in standard form, a weird thing is going to appear. We write our plus x to move it over. Thank goodness our x is positive, so we don't have to worry about any weirdness with, like, multiplying by a negative and the sign flipping. But notice, because we moved this over, we're like, what's left over here? It's a 0. Okay, the 0 was there the whole time. And so this is how you write this inequality in standard form. Okay, that is the end of the notes, and I hope you have a fabulous day. And until next time, bye, guys.